It starts off with the principle that one size fits no one, and that often the mistake we make in organisations is to treat everybody in a similar way. In fact, from our perspective, there is way too much time spent on developing complex competency models and matrices for what skills are needed at each level, in each role, and each type of performance, and far too little on helping individuals flourish and succeed and build on their own strengths. So principle, belief number one, is that one size fits no one. Belief number two is that we learn a lot more when we learn a little and often. And it tends to have been the case that our investment in talent is occasional and extensive. So suddenly someone becomes a new director or a new manager, or they move from graduate to first-time manager, then they get a large investment in them. Actually, the best way to learn is a little and often. So rather like learning to drive a car or play the piano, we learn much more if you have a short little something, you're going to give it a go, and then reflect on it, and then come back and learn something new. So that would be belief number two. Belief number three is that people change only when they believe it is in their own best interest to do so. Therefore, the idea with talent that we can get it to conform to those competencies or values that we come up with, or that we want to make everyone consistent, and that this is the framework or the mould we want to put people into, is, in our opinion, thoroughly mistaken, misguided, and likely to lead to a massive wasted investment. What we want to be doing is understanding what employees care about, what they are motivated to do, and to match that to what the organisation wants. Let me give you an example. Royal Mail were keen to encourage the coaching capabilities of their frontline posties. In particular, one of the challenges they have is that when new people join, they do not feel particularly welcome, and therefore often they do not stay. So if those that were there could treat them with more warmth and welcome them and help them with the challenges of the job in the early days, then that would encourage retention, which would have a clear business benefit. However, when we went out to research what people in the front line care about, what they feel about, what's important to them, on the list of priorities, coaching new colleagues is pretty low down. In fact, they don't care about it awfully much. However, when we went to find out what they did care about, what we discovered was that they care a lot about their children, and in particular how to help their children with their homework, because they like their kids to do well and grow up and be a success. So what we designed for them was a program called Guiding Hand, which was how do you help people who are a bit stuck. And it's even better, you can practice this at work. And therefore we worked with the motivations of the posties to help them do something that mattered to them, but at the same time help the organisation achieve what it wanted and release its talent potential. Fourth belief is that 5 minutes with a genius beats a month with a fool. The idea here is that for too long we have assumed that we should measure investment in people by the number of hours they spend learning or development days. And that this is a massively misguided measure to use. And if we reflect back, each of us, on when we've learned something recently, it is very rarely took us a day or a longer period to learn it. It is a short conversation with a colleague, or hearing something good on television, or watching someone in a show, or something we spotted on the internet. It takes moments to learn something, not long periods of time. There are some things that require long periods of time to learn, but many fewer than the organisational environment suggests. So if we think about how we learn to play the piano, or learn to drive a car, or even learn maths at school, it was in short bursts. We often learn quite a lot at the same time. The fifth belief is that science is sexy, and that we should trust us in research an awful lot more than we have done. So in that context, we perhaps could compare the world of talent liberation with medicine at the end of the 19th century and beginning of the 20th century. And during that period, there was a widespread quackery, a widespread view that if you bled people, that would help them cure, or put some hot things on their head, and so on and so forth. And a lot of this was based on nothing more than an assumption of whoever it was delivering this particular solution. And many potions were sold that made no difference to someone's health. Then came along what we call modern medicine, which looked at scientific evidence and was far more evidence-based on what would have an impact than anything that has gone before. And our view on talent liberation is fundamentally we must become evidence-based. we must rely on the science or use that as the basis for the interventions that we make. And we look at that in two ways. The first is in drawing on what existing science has been done, in particular the field of psychology, which is absolutely rich and overflowing with tremendous insights, robust data, fantastic revelations about how the mind works and how we can use it more effectively, and yet is often missed. Some good stuff from all the positive psychology comes in. We come across the work of Seligman every now and then, or Giuseppe High, but there are thousands of others, great studies that are sitting there in dusty tomes, and it is the job of the talent liberators to go undust those tomes, crispen up that research, and present it in ways that helps. And the second way in which we should be using science far more than we have done to date is in measuring and evaluating the interventions that we make. And I think it would be our hypothesis, controversial though this may be, that HR or OD or L&D tends to do a lot at quite a mediocre level and would be far better off doing fewer things at an exceptionally high level. And for that we need to measure what the impact is. So in a lot of the work that we do, we conduct control groups to measure the difference between those who came to an experience and those who didn't. And we measure longitudinal studies, so in advance, immediately after, 4 weeks later, 4 months later. So we start to see what levels of transfer there are, what leads to more or less transfer, because we're constantly changing the controls in the experiment, because every intervention wears the experiment if you measure it, and therefore learning what has most impact. So those are the first 5 of 6 beliefs, but there is one more yet to come for those who have the patience to carry on listening this far. And that 6th belief is that we choose how we think far more than we realise. And in so much of talent liberation, there is the intention of moving people from A to B, of saying you're currently thinking like this or doing this, and you'd be better off if you were doing that, B. So we unfreeze you from A, take you to B, and then refreeze you there. And our view is that this is totally unproductive, mostly because we don't much like being frozen and unfrozen as human beings, therefore it's unlikely to connect with us. And also because by the time we've learned B, it's probably C or D or E or F that we're going to need to be doing, or alpha or gamma or some other letter in the cryptic alphabet or the Russian alphabet or whatever it happens to be. And therefore what we need to do is to equip people with choices, to help people see how there are many more options for how we can think about something than they had currently thought of, to understand what the implications are of each of those thoughts, and therefore off the back of that, as a result of that, to be able to make better decisions in the moment about which option to use. So for example, in influencing, there are 9 main influencing styles or tactics that we use. It starts with reason, 2 + 2 = 4, through to inspire, 2 + 2 = 27 or 103, or happiness or green or anything other than 4, and so on and so forth. Most of us tend to use all those tactics at some stage or other, but more 1 or 2 of them than the others. And as a result, we're less flexible, we're less mentally agile than we might be. So talent liberation to us, mind you, is all about helping people see those new choices, realise those new possibilities, and make informed decisions in the moment about how to deal with them. So perhaps that gives a sense, those 6 beliefs, a sense of the philosophy we have to talent liberation.